Stanford University.
با سلام دوستان عزیز، بنده عباس میلانی، مدیر برنامه ایران شناسی مقدم دانشگاه استنفورد، وجودتون و آمدنتون رو خیلی مقدم عرض میکنم. My name is Abbas Milani. I direct the Muqaddam program in Iranian Studies here at Stanford. On behalf of the program, on behalf of Stanford University, I would like to welcome you all. The way the evening is going to proceed is we are going to have Ms. Bita Daryabari give us a speech, a brief speech, like all of her speeches are sweet and short. Then I will give also a sweet and short speech, and then we will have the prize given to our special guest for the evening, and then she will come on stage. And I apologize for the delay. The reason was that she preferred the chair rather than standing up here. We had to change the setup. So without taking any more of your time, I'd like to welcome you and welcome Ms. Bita Daryabari.
Thank you, Dr. Milani. My speech is not going to be short and sweet, so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, greetings on behalf of myself, my family, and Stanford University. I offer you a hearty Persian welcome. I hope you don't mind if I begin my remarks with a few words in Persian. My goal in creating the Daryabari Endowment in Persian letters has been, first and foremost, to promote teaching and scholarship on Persian language and its remarkable literary tradition here at Stanford. And in that spirit, I began my comments with a few words in the language and culture we have gathered here to celebrate. دوستان و سروران گرامی، از طرف خودم، خانوادم و همچنین از طرف دانشگاه استنفورد به همه شما خیر مقدم میگویم. به ویژه میخواهم از خانم گلی ترقی که دعوت ما را پذیرفتند و از راهی دور به جمع امشبمان پیوستند سپاسگزاری کنم. گرچه زبان رسمی برنامه امشب ما به احترام مهمانان، دانشجویان و اساتید امریکایی ما انگلیسی است، ولی از آنجا که هدف اصلی من از ایجاد این کرسی‌ها کمک به رواج و غنای زبان فارسی و میراث ادبی غنی ماست و آنجا که ملاک اصلی برای این جایزه قدرشناسی از فعالیت‌های هنری و فرهنگی یکی از هم‌میهنان ایرانی خوش‌ذوق و هنرمند ماست، تصمیم گرفتم این چند کلمه را برای حسن آغاز کار به فارسی بگویم. خوش آمدید. امیدوارم با حضور و حمایت مادی و معنوی از فعالیت‌های ارزشمند این مرکز ایران شناسی در دانشگاه استنفورد به تقویت هرچه بیشتر زبان و فرهنگ در خطر ما مداد برسانید. از زمان رودکی و فردوسی زبان ما سنگر مقاومت ما علیه خطرهای کوچک و بزرگ بود. ایرانیان مهاجر هم باید به سهم خود امروز به کار حفظ این سنگر کمک کنند. هر شعری که برای فرزندانمان می‌خوانیم و هر کمکی به تدریس یا تحقیق در زبان فارسی می‌کنیم به حفظ این سنگر کمک می‌کند. به برنامه امشب خوش آمدید و امیدوارم مورد پسندتان واقع شود. Let me offer a special word of welcome to our honored guest of tonight, Ms. Goli Taraghi. I have been for many years an admirer of her work, and when I learned of her candidacy, was overjoyed and knew we were on the right track. As many of you remember, last year we celebrated the poetry of Simin Behbahani, called rightly the grand dame of Persian ghazal, and I knew in my heart that it would be difficult to find someone of the same stature for our next year award. And when Goli's name was mentioned, I knew we had indeed succeeded in a difficult task. Even as a young girl growing up in Tehran, the name of Goli Taraghi conjured in my mind a woman of unusual talent, daring, and accomplishment. Her work in the course of the last few years stands out for its remarkable combination of unflinching support for the rights of women and profound appreciation for harmony and peace in our world. I'm glad that Goli is the second winner of this award. It's a sad fact that Persian culture and literature is unknown to many otherwise educated and intelligent people in the world today. The history and achievement of Persia over the centuries has been forgotten, obscured by clouds of ignorance. And this is why I wanted to create this endowment, to shine a light into the darkness of our Persian culture. And I know from my own life how important it is to understand different cultures. Most of us who are parents here tonight grew up in Iran in a time of war and upheaval. When I think back about my own days during the Iran and Iraq war, I remember sleeping every night under the bombardment and rockets. I remember not knowing if I will be alive in the morning to go to school and see my friends. I remember that my father made real sacrifices to send me away to the safety of school in America. Once I got here, I had to endure being called a terrorist when I was in high school. It's not got any easier since 9/11. You all know what I'm talking about. We still face challenges, the same challenges we all do in being from a country that is misunderstood, of being labeled an outsider. Learning the Persian language and learning about the Iranian civilization and culture will not only help two people to find each other again, it will directly improve our understanding of this important country called Iran and help us address our concerns with the American government in a more effective manner. Currently, the State Department only has one single diplomat who has served in Iran, Deputy Assistant Undersecretary John Limbert, a former US hostage in Iran. We still have too few people in government that speak Persian, who have been to the country and who knows about its great history. Without this knowledge, how can we expect to make wise decisions in our foreign policy toward Iran? Imagine if we, in 2002, knew just a little about Iraq, Iran's neighbor to the west. If we knew its history, its culture and language, would we still be stuck in the desert with no political solution in sight? Would we have been invaded without a reconstruction plan? Would we have sent 20-something young Americans with no Arabic skills and no understanding of Iraq's culture to rebuild that country's future? Would we even have invaded that country in the first place? Only education and knowledge will enable us to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. Let the mistake in Iraq never be repeated in Iran. Well, when I created the Daryabari Endowment for Persian Letters, it was to allow Stanford to remove the misunderstandings, to share the history, poetry, and our Persian heritage with Americans and Westerners. Our first visiting professor was Dick Davis, and many of us who shared his insight and his love and command of Persian poetry knew how valuable his presence was on this campus. Last year, in spite of economic hardships, half a dozen artists and writers were invited to Stanford under the auspices of our program. As some of you who were here last year know, we created this endowment because there were no courses on Persian literature offered at Stanford. There were courses and talks and conferences on matters political, but the realm of culture and literature was less attended to. I knew from the writing of Dr. Milani that he loved literature. I had discussed Persian poetry and literature with him many times, and I knew that if there were funds available, the glaring absence of literature will be eliminated. I'm happy to say that watching the work of the endowment over the last 2 years, I'm happy we created it. In fact, I'm so happy with this work that I want to use the occasion tonight and share another piece of good news with you. I have decided to create a chair in Persian literature at Stanford University. I'm announcing tonight that I will be making another endowment to Stanford University to be matched by 1.5 million from Stanford to create the Daryabari Chair in Persian letter and language. Thank you. And thank you, Stanford, for trusting me and believing in my goal. Before the process ends and the university, with active participation of Dr. Milani, finds the right person for the chair, the money will be used to promote the language and culture of Persia. It has been promised to us that from now on, anyone who wants to study Persian language at Stanford, even at the level of reading original literature in Persian, will not be denied the opportunity. I was happy to see that last year, the endowment partnered with the Persian Student Association of Stanford University to donate hundreds of volumes of modern Persian poetry and literature to the university. Thank you, PSA, for your collaboration and work with us. We all know that Stanford has come to the study of Iran late. We are grateful to the Muqaddam family for taking the first step in creating a program at Stanford. But for a great university like Stanford, launching a world-class program takes more than efforts of two families. Our entire community must rally to support this great institution in having a program of Iranian studies worthy of both our rich, diverse, and ancient yet vibrant culture. Without your help, we cannot do this. Hamid and I have planted the seeds and the great Stanford tradition. Only we as a community, each doing our little shares, can help create the Persian garden of Persian studies at the glorious institution. Finally, on a wider scale, Stanford University, Muqaddam family, Iranian American community, and I would like to thank Dr. Milani for his guidance, tireless work, and love for Iranian studies. And again, thank you all for joining us in celebration of the wonderfully rich work of Goli Taraghi, and we hope to see you in all our future events. Thank you.
It was short, and it certainly was sweet. In setting up the Bita Prize for Persian Letters, itself part of the Bita endowment, we realized that what Bita had in mind was that each year the prize would go to an artist of exceptional talent and accomplishment, someone who in the course of that last year or in the course of their lifetime had made singular accomplishments in the realm of the arts. Our first prize went to Simine Behbahani, easily the most accomplished and creative poetess living in Iran today. We knew then that finding someone of equal stature in poetry or in fiction will not be an easy task. When I say we, I must describe that throughout the course of a year, I receive recommendations from friends, colleagues, or even strangers about the next best candidate for the next year. I convene a committee of at least 3 people, one of them inside Iran, and through consultations with this committee, we decide each year's winner. For many decades now, Goli Taraghi has been a forceful but quiet, persistent but self-effacing presence in the realm of the arts in Iran. The quality of her prose is, I think, the best metaphor for the power of her aesthetic persona. It is elegantly simple, satirically subtle. It has the parsimony of poetry and the power and precision of a Chekhov short story. For years now, Goli has also delved deeply into the views of Carl Gustav Jung about literature and the unconscious, about anima and animus, about the cosmic implications of everyday events. Her book on the Grand Lady of Existence brings together the results of her Jungian forays and includes a fascinating deconstruction of Forough Farrokhzad's poetry from the prism of the cosmic battle between anima and animus, reason and revelation, self and persona. It was, incidentally, Forough Farrokhzad who first encouraged the young, timid Goli Taraghi, just returned from America, to put on paper the wonderful stories she masterfully recounted. Whether contemplating the place of the mythical mother of life in human consciousness, or writing about the larger-than-life figure of her father, a real estate and a publishing magnate, an Iranian Citizen Kane, in her own words, whether describing the sad and satirical absurdities of life in Islamic Republic or in secular France, she brings to her subject a sobering and searing honesty, an acute awareness of the ironies of the human condition. In her work, the comic and the melancholic are inseparable. Human frailty is matched by the humanism, evident not just in her characters, but in her own authorial persona. In all she writes, facts of life and fiction of the mind, myth of the past, and mundane realities of today cohere to create narratives that are, in the best traditional Persian literature, at once simple and sophisticated, easy to enjoy, but impossible to emulate. It is arguably the deluding simplicity of her work that has made good translation of them hard to find, and as a result has made her less known to the English-speaking world. Rare are Iranian writers who have experienced and articulated the drudgeries of diaspora, no less than the suffocating warmth of home, with acute awareness and aesthetic sophistication, in a language replete with irony and satire, and with a constant awareness of the role cosmic, if unconscious, forces play even in the most simple matters of everyday life. She approaches her subjects with the impartial, incisive, and brutal honesty of an outsider, and the erudition, creativity, and compassion of an infinitely informed insider. All writing, critics say, are autobiographical. But in Taraghi's works, the lines between fact and fiction, real and imagined, are imperceptible. Many of her essays and stories are a hybrid that fit the genre called faction, a fictively creative rendition of factual realities. At the same time, in all her work, the prism is invariably one of a modern woman, at once unmistakably global and Persian. Global in her aesthetic sensibilities, Persian in her erudition and local knowledge. Her feminine perspective, even her feminism, is not rooted in ideological or theoretical abstractions, but in the contours of her own relentlessly fascinating, searching life. From the emotional and financial opulence and political authoritarianism of home to the privations and loneliness of exile. She has suffered much, but she has never forfeited her joyous celebration of life and its many majestic mysteries, ironies, and satires. It is in recognition of these accomplishments that the Daryabari Endowment in Persian Letters is proud to present her the second Bita Prize in Persian Letters and Freedom. We're going to ask Bita Khanum to come back and give her the award. Please.
I don't know what to say after all this, after hearing all these flattering words of Mr. Milani and Madame Bita, Madame Bita, I'm sorry, I come from France, and Mrs. Bita Daryabari, and really, I'm honored, I'm pleased, I am
flattered. What else can I say? Thank you. Thank you.
مرسی که اومدید.
خواهش می‌کنم. مرسی.
این بگیم بهش بگم بعداً که اینو یه مخصوصاً برای همین قضیه درست کرد.
This is beautiful. Please. I'm not used to so much to be flattered and to be honored, and I'm really happy. And for a writer, I think, or any artist, nothing is more important than to be appreciated, to be recognized, and to feel that if I'm a writer, my books has passed to the people, my words, and I do have an audience that read my work, because it's not, can I sit down? It's not easy to write, you know, especially I'm a type that I choose every single word. I read it over and over and over. I have a sickness of changing and changing and changing 100 times. And I think it's finished. I send it to the publisher, and then I take it back again, and I send it back, and I take it back again. So I drive myself and everybody crazy. But even at the end, I'm not satisfied. I'm always looking for something. Especially, you know, writing in Persian language is very difficult, because Persian language is a language of really poetry. And we don't have much background, you know. It's just started from Jamalzadeh or Sadegh Hidayat, and whereas in Europe, there are centuries of tradition, of fiction and novel, and there is the language, you know, for it. Whereas Persian language is a language of poetry. So it's very difficult, but I love it. This is a challenge, you know, that for me to write in Farsi, because somehow, although, you know, I went to America when I was only 16 years old, and I made all my studies there, but still when I came to Iran, of course, I loved Persian language. There was something in it, but still I was not sure if I could write anything. And as Dr. Milani said, it was really Furugh Farrokhzad who we met somehow in Iran at Golistan's, Mr. Golistan's house, and she's the one who encouraged me. She said that whenever you talk, you're telling a story. You're telling a story. Why don't you write down? You are a storyteller. So I said, no, I cannot, you know, in Persian language. So she said, yes, go ahead and write, because you, just right now you told me a story about your grandmother, write it. So I wrote it, and it was published in Andisha Honar. It was a magazine, and at first I really wanted to know what she says. No one else, only Furugh, what she says. And when I saw her, she said, didn't I tell you are a writer? Didn't I tell you? And it meant a lot to me, because I believed in her. She was a fantastic person. And really, when she died, I remember the first thing I said to myself was, for whom am I going to write from now on? Because her opinion was so important to me. But then later on, I found many Furughs, like all you people here who encouraged me to write and told me, write, you're a storyteller, go ahead and write. So thank you very much, first of all, for coming here and giving yourself this trouble of coming probably from, I don't know, far away, because here I discovered the distance, you know, in being here in San Francisco and all different places, hours and hours to go to see someone. So before I start my lecture, I would like to thank again, many thanks to Bita. I call her Bita if she permits, and Mr. Milani, who arranged who made it possible for me to come here, you know, from Paris. I live in Paris, so I came here, and I'm so glad. And I really didn't know what is going on here, and I understand that Stanford is really a center for Iranian literature, and I'm very proud of it. And what Mrs. Bita has done is really, you know, amazing. I'm really proud of her because I don't know of anyone else around me, no one else. It's not a matter of having the ability, the money, the funds. It's just spending it in this way, because there are other people, you know, they have it, but they don't think about it. And her devotion to the Persian language and Persian literature is admirable. I really thank her from the bottom of my heart. And this is beautiful, and this is beautiful also. And now, I've written something, but I don't have the habit of reading from any writer. You know, I'm a writer. I'm a writer, and as a writer, like most of the writers, I have a deep problem, and I always write about, you know, this problem. And every writer is obsessed by an existential inner problem, which comes out in different ways, different manners, different characters, but the bottom is always that problem, that question is asked. For me, when I look at my works, I can divide them in two groups. Two experiences, one experience of exile, being in Paris and being away from home, has played a big role in my writing and in my creative imagination. And another problem is the problem of duality. Thank you. And this problem, these two problems, I want to talk about it, but mostly I have called my lecture My Two Worlds. When I wrote my childhood memories, I called them Do Dunya. Do Dunya, because this two worlds, or Do Dunya, I experienced that all my life. When I look at it from the very childhood up to today, I see that I have lived between two opposing worlds, just side by side. We all have two worlds. We all have childhood, adulthood, are two different worlds, but they're not in conflict. They're a continuation of one life. But I lived as a child, I experienced these two conflicting worlds in my life, two opposing modes of being. And it was my family. My father came from, you know, a religious, a traditional family. He was supposed to become an Ayatollah. Maybe it wasn't bad if he had become. But he even studied, you know, and even finished the School of Theology in the city, holy city of Rome. And my paternal family, they all lived there. But that was the time of really, you know, the modernization of Iran after Reza Shah came. And my father was fascinated by Western, you know, progress. And he saw misery all, you know, around in Tehran, in Rome, everywhere, you know, superstition. So he threw away, you know, his turban and came to Tehran and became a lawyer and established a Taraghi magazine and changed his name and chose this name, Taraghi, which means progress. This really shows how much he loved progress. Or his best friend, also who came from a religious family, called himself Tajaddud. So Mr. Progress and Mr. Civilization, you know, they really are the symbol of an embodiment of a generation who really loved Western, not Western values, but Western progress and scientific, you know, progress and civilization, in contrast to the superstition that we were stuck in. So if he had not married my mother or somebody from home, everything would have been all right, maybe. But he married my mother, who came from an extremely modern family. She was educated also in a French school. She was beautiful. She always went to Paris, Europe. My uncles were educated in Vienna and in Germany, and they were extremely modern. My grandfather had a pharmacy. So I just, you know, my mother, this was my mother's family. But during the summer, you know, usually my aunts came to stay with us. And I have written in my book that as soon as they came, my father said, "Oh, Gorga آمدن." So the wolves arrived. Beware, مواظب خودتون باشین. So, wolves. And then they settled in downstairs, but for me, they were mysterious characters. I loved it. The smell of, you know, the bundles, you know, bokche, old suitcases. From the suitcases, these bundles, this mysterious world, you know, came into the house, which was so different, but it fascinated me. So right away, I fell under the spell of my aunts. And they told me about God, the eye of God, which is everywhere, can see me, even wherever I hide, this eye will see me. And I was so scared of this eye, you know, will see me everywhere. Even I remember under the shower, I wanted something because I said, they will see me, you know, I'm ashamed. And then they told me to pray 5 times a day, which made a chador for me, and they told me about heaven and hell, and they told me that my mother probably will go to hell, and will be followed by my uncles. And they didn't say anything about my father because they were scared of him very much, and they needed him for money. And so I would just pray 5 times a day, but I would cut my prayers, you know. I said, I'll go, oh God, you know, you understand, you know, just, you know, with the rest of it. What is the use if I tell you something that you know? So the rest of it, and then I would just run to my mother, who would take me to La Lézard Avenue or to Café Naderie, and we would dance, and she would also, you know, she would dance with my uncles and music, and that was another world. And I really didn't know which one to choose, because I wanted both of them, and how to bridge these 2 worlds. So right about this time, then suddenly comes my father, as I called him, a self-made man, who had called my brother and I and said, listen, I won't give you a penny. And he was a very rich man, you know, extremely. He was intelligent enough to buy lands and to sell lands, and at the time we went to Shemiran, there was just nobody apparently but us, just few houses, and he bought all the lands in Mahmoudiyeh, Fereshte, God knows what, and he knew that the future is there. So he said, I won't give you or your brother, you 2 donkeys, I remember, a single penny. Go to America and make something of yourself. How? I said, go. Give us some money at least. Just go. So he sent my brother, who went to Washington. But this brother really, I don't know why, he was a masochist probably, because he changed his place from Washington. He came to Des Moines, Iowa. which is the worst place in the world of all the places, God. So then after 2 years, my father said to me, now it's your turn. You go where your brother is. Of course, I was this happy child, with all these cousins playing, going to Sarepol Tajrish, being free, and bicycles in Mahmoudiyeh, Bagh Ferdows. Ooh, I was the happiest child in the world. But at the same time, America, my God. I went to see with my friends at least 10 times to Cinema Iran to see the film 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. I don't know if you had seen it, but it was America. But I said, I don't know how to dance, because this was a musical film. And the 7 brothers danced with 7 brides. So I remember at night I would bring Hassan Agha, our cook, and I would stand on a chair and I would say, I jumped on and you hold me and turn me around. And he said, oh no, he tapped his head and ran to my mother and said that Goli Khanum divune shode, vay vay. So I went to Des Moines, Iowa, looking forward to meet one of these 7 brothers. Of course, I was also, fat. And my brother wrote my name in high school because I was only in 9th grade. And because I didn't speak any English, they wrote my name. They put me first in a class for retarded students. Still, I learn English. So I walked into this retarded student class, and I saw 7 boys, the lanky, ugly 7 boys, with all pimples and the hair sticking out, and my dream of 7 brothers, just was shattered right away. But soon, I became the champion of the class of retarded students, of course. I knew so much because the first thing the teacher asked was, for example, who knows that 125 plus 2? And then the retarded brothers went like this, and I said, I know. Ooh, they clapped for me. And then again, I know. And so soon they put me out, and soon I went up and up and up, and then I graduated. So that was the experience of being in America, but at the same time, I felt, America is assimilating society, apparently. Right away, they accepted me. I had a ponytail, I wear, tennis shoes, but I never became American. I was neither Iranian, not American. I was something in between. And I was homesick like E.T. I remember E.T. calling, look at the planet and say, E.T. phone home. Every night I would look at moon and say, Goli phone home. And so this life also continued, but I was aware constantly of, I am in the middle of 2 lives, Half of me stayed really Iranian, always Iranian, I read and Farsi, Iranian, polo, khoresh, Iranian food, music, and the other half was hamburger, football game, everything. So I had really a split personality, Then I returned to Tehran. For a while, everything was apparently okay. I got married. I had 2 children. I was teaching at Tehran University. I started to write and make a name for myself. Of course, like many, I was fascinated by this slogan of revolution, people chanting in the streets, this fever, this collective fever. You could not resist it unless you were extremely, and I was a naive person. I didn't have experience of political experience, and this hope. I was teaching at the university. I suffered because of the repression of my students, and I joined my students, and I joined the people, and I really didn't know what's awaiting me. I didn't know what, I had the slightest idea that soon all my family would immigrate to the different corners of the world, that our domestic staff would walk out from our house, that I will be thrown out of the university. I dreamed another world for everybody and myself. So university was closed, and I decided to leave for 1 year, take my children, come and stay in Paris. I always wanted to study French, and I said that I will come back after a year. So they will go probably after a year. The war broke, lasted 8 years. I couldn't bring the children back. So we stayed. We stayed, and we are staying still there. But I kept going to Tehran. I kept going to Tehran, and I took my children. My children speak Farsi perfectly. So I kept the link, and I started to publish in Iran. It was so important for me. But then, once in Iran, whenever I go to Tehran, I'm more than ever, I am between two worlds, really two conflicting worlds, two sets of values, because the old values, the Western and modern values persist. They are, maybe the fragments of the past is there, but then another values, traditional, religious, is right there too. So people, not only me, people also live two worlds, outside and inside. If you go inside of the house, is another world completely. You drink, you play music, you have video, you have access to everything. You are absolutely, there is the microcosm of a modern Western life. And then hello? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Now I will have a sip of water too. I'm going to talk. Then, really in Iran, we inside, you have heard or you have been to Iran, you know that inside is another world. Outside, as soon as you come out, there are Islamic rules, and you put a veil, you put your uniform, you become someone else. Inside, again, you're someone else. Then I really start to notice that what a contradiction, what a schizophrenic society really right now we have, because I give you, I don't want to analyze, social analysis. I just give you stories as a story examples, First of all, historically, I see this conflict dates back. We are Persian and we are not Persian. We speak Farsi and we pray in Arabic. We celebrate our New Year's Eve is a Zoroastrian ritual. At the same time, we have the drum of Karbala and martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Both of them, we are neither this, we are neither that. We are, for example, we have a group Marxist Islamists. This is absolute contradiction between a Marxist and Islamist. We have mystic communists, another contradiction completely, I have had communist friends when they discuss, suddenly one of them recites a poem of Rumi, and then they get so emotional, and they read Hafiz, and the argument, ends up by just reciting poetry. These contradictions that are in the I don't know, in our history we have a historical contradiction, because we have been Zoroastrian, we have been, I see the people, for example, I call them, I have a friend, I call her Khanum Hakhamaneshi. We have a lot of these people because she's talking constantly about our glorious past, of Kurosh, of Dariush, of what we were. And then we are really bound, deep down, we are bound to our ancient mythology. At the same time, we are Muslims, we have become Muslims, and we are bound to the Islamic rituals, you know. So there is this deep down contradiction historically. This year I saw that people celebrated Nowruz before the tomb of Kurosh, Cyrus. And then they had, one of them was reciting Avesta, and then they had Hafsin, and this was as if, you know, we were gone back centuries. But the same people probably, when there is day of Ashura, they come out and, you know, they tap their breasts. Now I tell you a few examples of these contradictions is one. That when I was in Tehran, I took the bus. I saw an empty seat and I sat down. And then the driver said, no, 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 lady, go to the other side. That belongs to women. And I saw everybody is looking at me, and really I'm sitting next to, you know, all are men, and I'm here and all women there. But there was no empty seat. So I said, because there is no empty seat. He said, no, don't make problem. Go to the other side. That, you know, this is absolute restriction. Men, women. Well, don't you know? Yeah. Okay. I come out. I want to go to the city. I take a taxi. You know, Iranian taxis went from Shemiran to Tehran. They take 5 or 6 passengers, mixed. So in the back there was this man. I sat next to him. And then another passenger, as fat like it is, sat next to me. And I was squeezed between 2 strangers. And the fat man put his hand around my shoulder because he had no other choice. You know, he has no other choice because there was no. And then I was sitting like this, and his feet, my feet, the other's feet, all together. And believe me, I never in my life, I was so embarrassed in public being, you know. So I said, why not? I just, you know. I sat, you know. So, but the strange thing was that neither the driver, neither the, you know, nor the pastor who passed surprised or said anything. It was so natural, you know, to be squeezed by 2 men. I don't know. This is the rule in taxis. How? How? Well, why? I kept asking, really. I don't understand. This is Iran, they said. This is Iran. That's it. That's it. Okay. So this was really one example. Another example that I want to tell you how this about this really deep down historical division was that I bought an tabarzin, an axe. Well, why did I buy that? God knows. Of all things for my son. And the head of it was very beautiful because of that, probably decorated with verses from Quran or I don't know, things like that. And it had a tail, I don't know, that's it. Huh? Okay. So in my suitcase, suddenly they say, they looked and said, "Awlat qattale," you know. So I said, well, what do you mean? I cannot kill anybody by this. First of all, it's in my suitcase and it will go. So there's no possible. Then they said, this is very, very antique, you know, it's so important. So they called someone to come and say that if this belongs to Hachemanish time or Sasani, so they called Mr. Tuti. So his name was Tuti, of all the names. So Mr. Tutti came and looked at it and said, the head belongs to the period of Arabs' invention, but the tail goes to the Sassanid period. The man in the costume suddenly whispered in my ear and said, lady, take the tail. It's not the tail, but I can tail. And keep the head. Let them, give them the head and keep the rest. Then I saw suddenly this became really, how can something be in two parts? One part belonging to Sassanid period and one part belonging to the Islamic period. And I saw that this is us. Yes. Our heads and our tails are not the same thing, you know. And and this head is sort of glued to the other part. We are neither white nor black, but we are a person that half of it is black and half of it is white. Can you imagine that? So this really was a lesson for me, that of this deep, you know, deep contradiction, historical, mythological contradiction. What else? Let me see, have a look. Okay. Then I just say one more example, that it was Mr. Rafsanjani's, for example, Rafsanjani's at that time election, he was a candidate. Young girls and boys, you know, in a roller skate, were just going all over the Shemiran, holding a placard, Hashemi for future. You know, Hashemi for future, they would say. And it was written Hashemi for future. Why in English, you know? Why in English? This is Hashemi Rafsanjani, Ayatollah Rafsanjani. Then I went to the studio, you know, where they were playing pop music, and at the same time, suddenly it would be cut, and they would say, Salah, hello, salawat. They send the salawat, and then again, they serve sandwiches and Canada Dry, and they played pop music. A mixture of head and tail, you know, exactly. These examples are many. So I cut it short for just the last part of it, is that I try to keep my identity as a writer. Among all this living between these two different conflicting worlds, I try to keep myself. If I'm not Iranian, if I'm not American, if I'm not French after 30 years, I'm a writer. And this is my identity. But even as a writer, there is two sides to me. When I write, automatically, I write with the idea of the man from Ershad, you know, censorship, is sitting next to me, and I'm afraid of him, and I cannot get rid of him. And so constantly there's a conscious, I cannot say unconscious, self-censored, you know. I cut this part, words especially, I'm so afraid of words, because you don't know anything, any subject, for example. Subject of love is forbidden. You can write about love, but the couple, they have to be married. And I'm not going to write a love story about a couple who are married, you know, never. Yeah. And I don't have anything against marriage, but what's fun of it, you know? So if you read Iranian Persian, you know, literature, you will see. I've gathered, for example, many young women write. A man and a couple, a young man and a young woman, they meet in a restaurant. Right away, he proposes to her, and in 6-10 pages, they're just, you know, talking or walking, and right away they get married. And the rest of the book is about the difficulties of marriage. and then how she's unhappy, how she's bored, her problems. It's no love. I'm sorry. So when I write, all the subjects are forbidden. I know, the words. Sometimes censorship, they do stupid things. I must tell you this, that in one of my stories, this Monsieur Aleph, the love, this woman is for her like a big mother, like an ideal woman, is going to call her. With every number, I give an image, which comes before his eyes. I play with the symbols of letters, I try to say. And then finally is 0, So I say that he felt as if he has put his hand in the naf of Khanume Nabovat, the center of the world, the cosmic mother. So the word, then they censored. They took out the word naf, and then they had put 3 points. And I said, my God, this is worse, because if you put 3 words is for the worst word that they take out. And so I went there and I said, please, this is terrible. He put his hand in 3 words of Madame Nabouva. No. So please put in the qalb of Khanum Nabouva, because it has to be 3 words of qalb of Khanum Nabouva, please. So then so then as a writer, I write for myself, whatever I want to say. I give myself, I become a free writer. I become myself. With joy and ecstasy, I write. Then I become the frustrated, angry, hurt writer that writes with the hope of publishing it, in Iran, and it may pass with the censorship. But no matter what you do, because there are no rules and regulations, always there are surprises. And I finish with this little part, that I wrote this story, which is called, when I was in Paris, this is actually a story of myself and my problems being in, first because I didn't speak French and how lost I was. So I called it The Adventures of Monsieur Aleph in Exile. And I wanted to publish only this first chapter. It was a big no. So I went there and I said, but why? There's nothing in it. And the man looks at me and says that this Monsieur Aleph, you say, is a professor of history, such a distinguished, respectable man. Now, why did you send him to Paris? I said, well, it just happened that he was very unhappy. The school was closed. You couldn't send him to, for example, Yemen, Syria, somewhere, some religious country, but Paris, of all the places. This man must return right away. I said, no. I promise you. Mr. Aleph is a very pious man. He doesn't drink. He doesn't chase women. He doesn't eat pork. And he said, and how do you know? So I said, well, I guess. I guess. What can I say? So he said, no. He must come back. So I said, well, if he comes back, what about the other chapters? He said, I don't care. It's not my problem. So I talked to my publisher. I think I think everybody goes crazy with these things. I said, what can I do? He said, well, send him back at the end of the first chapter. Send him back to Iran. Get this published, and for the second, bring him back to Paris. I said, Mr. Aleph doesn't have any money. And this is true, because when you create a character, in a certain class, You cannot say that he went, he bought ticket, he went, logically doesn't have any money. And my publisher says, oh, that's not a problem, we can arrange that. So I said, well, I don't have the heart to send Monsieur Aleph back. I'll ask Monsieur Aleph himself. You want to go back? I'm still waiting for his answer. And so the book is unfinished, waiting. That's it. Thank you. چی؟ آها خب وقت داریم مگه؟ یه رو؟ خب پس آقای میلانی دلشون میخواد سوال و جواب باشه ولی خواهش میکنم سوالای خطرناک از من نکنید چون من میرم دائم ایرون رو میام مثل همون که نمازم که میگفتم خودتون تو خودت میدونی خب شما میدونین دیگه ولی خب نپرسین که من مجبورشم بگم اوکی Any questions? You want to know anything? Maybe there is no question. Good. Yeah.
How long were you in Des Moines and when did you leave Des Moines? Des Moines was not a bad city. I lived there.
But when? Because whenever I went to America in 1957. At that time, Des Moines was a nice city, simple people, Christmas time, jingle bells, and all these happy things. But they would invite me, to their homes. They were farmers. Of course, they had 4 Cadillacs, everything, but they were all farmers. And very kind, but it was a city that, I studied philosophy, and I was just, didn't know what to do. They constantly, for example, they invited me they gave me $10 to talk, and they asked me the strange question about Iran. Iran, is Iran, do you have camel? Do you ride camels? Do you do this? Do you do that? And when I went to visit this family, they took me to church, and they showed me to everybody as if, extra tourists had come. But I don't know when you went to Des Moines, Iowa. 1975? Still was as bad. Every time I said Des Moines, Iowa, if I said it to an Iranian, I would say, who? Where? If I said it to an American, where the hell you went there? But the only time I was proud was when the election this year, remember, started in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. Hillary Clinton and Obama were first. They started. So I said, this Des Moines, Iowa. You see, Des Moines, Iowa. That's it.
Did you go to Paris and why?
Why did I go to Paris? Because I didn't think that I would stay 30 years. Or Mr. Arif, maybe. No, because when the war started, I decided to leave. University was closed. So I said, I take this, opportunity. I take my children with me. They were 2 or 3 years old. So they learned French. I also have experience of new life in Paris and literature because I love French literature. And after a year, we will come back and everything will be okay. And Allah Hazrat هم برمیگردن. So, but then it happened just that the war started. I couldn't bring children back, and it lingered and lingered and lingered. But even during the war, I brought my children back constantly. I never stayed away. Yes?
The contradictions that you were talking about, how does that play out in the modern Iran today, both in the literature and just the common everyday lives of people? How do you see that working itself out with all the contradictions?
Yeah, of course. I was just half of the things I said was about the contradiction, absolutely, which exists in Iran, that you're forced to live two lives, two different lives. Outside, when you go, you have to obey the rules and regulations of Islamic, Republic. But once inside, at least, you are free. Of course, it is possible that sometimes when you have a party or you have invited people, suddenly the pastaran come, and they take a lot of, this doesn't happen much now, but before it was, they knew about it and they would rush in and take you to the committee. I was once the victim of one of these, events. I was in a party, and then suddenly they came and they had a camera. They took, pictures and photos and film of drinks and everybody. And often they accepted money, but this time they did not accept money, and they took everybody, men in a different bus, women in a different bus to the committee. There, most of the time you can buy. You have to pay. You have to pay your, punishment. You can buy your punishment. But I don't know how children. I don't know about these children, because children, they love their teachers. They obey their teachers. Teachers are so important. And then when they go to school, whatever the teacher says is sacred for them. And then when they come home, mothers and fathers say different things, just the opposite. I don't know really how these kids, manage between these two different opposing education. How they bridge it. But apparently they do. They are the children of revolution. I don't know. They really do it, At school, they're at school another person. At home, they're another person, Did I answer your question? No? You know what? I didn't hear you well. I imagine what you said. The youth, the young people.
Dealing with the contradictions, there's been talk about the history, the Hafamanishes and all the historical padishahs are going to be completely taken out of the history pages of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
How is that playing out in the literature and the teachings of the youth in Iran? I mean, there's certainly plenty of contradictions. I know that in the everyday lives it's there, but how is it playing in the real streets? I mean,
Well, I was just...
the modernization is happening, but is it, I'm confused. I don't know how they're...
I'm confused too, really. Talking about Iran is pure confusion, But it is true. For example, now, Ahmadinejad somehow, he has so much problem somewhere else that doesn't go really after, after girls and boys. I see the girls, I can't believe it, with, of course, horrible makeups, I wish they didn't do it, with the lips and eyes and, everything exaggerated, and the hair, and, and the boys, they put like they have an ananas up here, and the hair, believe me, the hairdo is unbelievable. They bring the hair in here, long in here, and then something, boom, 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 in here, and chains and earrings. They walk around, and then usually they're from lower classes, where they make themselves this way. And the girls, lipstick and the hair going up and, blonde, and eyebrows, tattooed eyebrows. They look really, they look like div, I don't know why, but this is some sort of reaction. And tight, some coat, and they roll up the blue jean more and more and more. And somehow they move around. They are there. Whenever I go to Tajrish or I go to certain restaurants, full of young people, boys, they pluck their eyebrows, noses. I've never seen anywhere, so much people with a bandage on the nose. It's become a part of a culture. Even boys, they operate their nose. That is why they are modern and they're not modern. They're this and they're not that. This is really, but when I was in the time of before election in Tehran, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw these young people coming out. I know I'm not answering your question, but I'm just saying these things. And I ask myself, where do they come from? Where have they been? These beautiful, beautiful girls, beautiful, handsome boys, chanting together, singing slogans, happy. And then later on, also I saw another version of them. How courageous, how unbelievably brave. I don't know where they came from, but they were suddenly the flowers of this country. I remember I told one of them, I asked one young boy, what is this green that you're, around your waist? Is this your Sayyidi? Is that it? Or what does that mean? Is this a religious sign? He said, no, this is a sign of love, nature, happiness, future. So I said, okay, but I'm not going to vote for Mr. Mousavi. He said, oh, you're not voting for Mr. Mousavi. You're voting for me, for us, for us. I was really touched, But at the same time, you have these young people, and then you have another group of fanatics, religious groups. This is it. That's it. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Just hoping that if you can choose an excerpt or a portion of your book or other abayalik or whatever and read it for your own book. Is it possible?
Now? No, it's not possible. First of all, it's too late. First of all, I don't have any book with me. I don't have any Iranian book. And then, Mr. Alif, I don't have help. No, maybe another time, because you're tired. I understand. I tried my best, so you will not be too tired. Yeah. Where do I find peace? Well, you know what? Sometimes, anyway, my book, although it's very hard, when you take a sentence out, even a point, just one word, you feel as if someone, takes a part of your flesh, pull a tooth or something. It's painful. But still, if it's not too damaging, I accept, because I want the book to be published. I really want it. Iranians, writers with censor play seek and hide. For example, sometimes it's absolutely no, and they wait. You wait, and suddenly somehow there's a small opening. Someone is changed. Somehow, they decide, the government somehow decides to loosen the ties, and we rush at that moment, and we get it published. Of course, there's always a danger. We get it published, and then it's confiscated. after. And that's the worst part of it. This is what happened to my book. I had a book called Darya Pari Kakul Zari. It's a long poem, sweet and funny, about a fat Persian mermaid in the Caspian Sea. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's a very, to pol mopol dun barbari, dastash kasif o johari. It was, rhymed. So she's bored. She says, she's in the bottom of the sea. She says, na kafein, maghazei, na ittifaq tazei. She decides to come up. Then she comes up in for example, Darya Kenar, somewhere. And suddenly she meets this little boy with a donkey. And then they're children, Ah, ooh, ee. They play, they play with each other. They go for a ride on a donkey and all that. And then finally, at the end of the day, he has to go back. But she's an innocent, thing. The other one is Bache Dahatiya. He knows. He's wise. He knows. He says, no. She says, میخوام بیام زنت شم. پیکه پیرهنت شم. وصله پیرهنت شم. از این مزخرفه. اون میگه که من بچه دهاتم. یه خرچرون لاتم. خونم قد یه پیله است، یه گوشه تو طویله است، تو پیرهن عروسی پلوی من میپوسی. میگه نه. خلاصه بالاخره پسر میره و این میفته زمین و آه و زاری و گریه و فلان و 40 روز تب و نمیدونم چی دم به تلاش کاسه لب پریده، دم به تلاش دریده. آقا این جمله دم به تلاش دریده چه بدبختی شد. اصلا به عقل من که هیچی، به عقل جنم نمیرسید. یک مرتبه یک مقاله نوشته شد، کتاب خطرناک، نویسنده فاسد، این کتاب رو بچه ها میخونن. این پری اولا اومده در دریا، آمده با این پسرک، خدا هم میدون چه کار کرده که دامش دریده شده. وای به خدا من اصلا مردم. اینکه من این پری رو مثل بچم دوست داشتم، بچم بود. یکی خیلی بهم گفتن این کتاب بلافاصله توقیف شد، تا امروز هم توقیفه. دیگه منم دیگه اصلا گفتم هر کارم میخوام بکنم. رفت تا رادیو فرانسه با یه مصاحبه کرد، گفتم آقا جان من نمیدونم، من شنیده بودم که میشه با مرغ و خروس و گاو و گوسفند، ولی با یه ماهی من تا حالا نشنیده بودم. و این فقط این تخیل غنیه یک ملاست که میتونه فکر کنه، چون به عقل من نرسیده بود. ولی خب دیگه کتاب توقیف شد دیگه، فعلا هم توقیفه دیگه مزاحمتون نمیشم. میدونم که سرتون درد آوردم. خیلی مرسی، خیلی لطف کردین. قربان شما میرم. خیلی ممنون.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.